Good afternoon and welcome to the SHU Sports Report. I'm Anthony Saccone, and we had a huge weekend in Sacred Heart sports action. So we will get this week's show rolling with some women's volleyball. Women's volleyball had a pair of matches this past weekend as they split the two games. On Friday, Sacred Heart took on NEC foe St. Francis Brooklyn in their first conference match. The Pioneers absolutely dominated the Terriers as they swept the series in 3 straight sets. The Pioneers took the first set, which was a back-and-forth affair, by a final of 25-22. The Pios then dominated the second set 25-17, and in the final set, SHU was down 5-1 and then rallied off a 9-2 run to come back and take the match 26-24. Leaders on the day were redshirt junior Liesl Nellis, who had 12 kills, and first-year Sarah Sijic had 34 total assists on the day. The Pioneers then looked to carry their momentum into Saturday as they had another NEC matchup against LIU Brooklyn. Unfortunately, Sacred Heart could not find their groove from the night before as they were swept by the Blackbirds. Junior Julia Murawinski tallied 9 kills on the day, and senior Lauren Middlemass had 2 serving aces. Sacred Heart Volleyball is back in action tomorrow as they start a 3-game road trip as they take on Fairleigh Dickinson. Now we'll move on from women's volleyball and head to Sacred Heart field hockey as the team took on Yale this past weekend. This was a heavyweight contest at its finest. The game was scoreless for a very long time until Sacred Heart finally broke the scoring open at the 30th minute as junior Colleen McKinley scored on a beautiful dish from first-year Kayla Crook. At the 45-minute mark, Yale would tie up the score. The score then remained the same as this game would require overtime. In overtime, Yale would net the game winner, but still all the credit to the Pioneers who put up a hard-fought battle in a tough loss. SHU field hockey falls to 6-5 on the young season as they look to get back on track in their next contest tomorrow as they host Fairfield at 12 p.m. After the break, we have our very own Ryan Toohey standing by with this week's Update Corner.
Welcome to this week's Update Corner. I'm Ryan Toohey. We have a lot of ground to cover this week, so let's lace up our shoes and start off with the cross-country teams as both the men's and women's teams competed in the Ted Owen Invitational in New Britain, Connecticut this past Saturday. The men's team finished in 5th place out of 7 teams. However, 3 Pios finished in the top 30 overall. Senior captain Dane Kirch-Navy came in at 11th at 27 minutes and 48.8 seconds. Sophomore Motis Chalet came in 15th place at 28 minutes and 11.3 seconds, and sophomore Chris Gillis came in 29th with a personal best time of 28 minutes and 43 seconds. The women's team, on the other hand, came out on top, winning their race with 41 points, 7 points ahead of second place Central Connecticut. The team had 4 runners finish in the top 10. Junior Jacqueline Thorne led the charge with a 3rd place finish with a time of 18 minutes and 39.1 seconds. Right behind her was teammate and junior Olivia Wise, coming in a second behind Thorne at 18 minutes and 40 seconds. Senior captain Emma Carey came in 9th place with a time of 19 minutes and 3.7 seconds, and freshman Galen Catman came right behind Carey at 19 minutes and 8.1 seconds for a 10th place finish. The cross-country teams have this weekend off from running races, but will return to action on Saturday, October 6th, when they race at the New England Cross Country Championships at Franklin Park in Boston. Both men's soccer and women's tennis had matches on Tuesday, but were postponed to a later date due to inclement weather. Now we'll move on to women's rugby as they hosted Castleton at Park Avenue Field this past Saturday. It was all Sacred Heart right from the get-go. 4 players had multiple tries on the afternoon. Sophomore Isabel Cuddy and junior Tiffany Brisbane both had 3 tries for 15 points, while sophomores Tessa Bucky and Ariana Hayonis had 2 tries for 10 points. In addition to that, junior Kaylee Hale went 5 for 6 on conversions. Sacred Heart would take this game easily and walk away with a 71-5 victory. The team is back in action on Saturday as they host Holby Sawyer College at Park Avenue Field. The game will be part of the Heart to Heart campaign to raise awareness for mental illness. And that'll wrap it up for this week's Update Corner. But for more on women's rugby, we have Gino Ganello sitting with the head coach, Michelle Reed. Gino?
Thanks, Ryan. I'm here with women's rugby head coach Michelle Reed. Coach, thanks for coming down.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, let's get right into things, and let's start off with how the season's going so far, and what kind of improvements you've seen so far. Now, sophomore Isabel Cuddy and junior Tiffany Brisbane both put in a lot of work in that 71-5 victory over Castleton. How have they picked up from last year, and are there any other players that the fans should be looking out for as they come to the games?
Sure. I think one of our biggest improvements from this year to last year is just continuing to build our team culture. They are holding each other accountable more and more every year. We start to build in that. I have to say less because teammates say more to each other. So that's a huge improvement for us. Our level of play has gone up. Now, it didn't show it in our first game. We had some outside factors that we're looking into, but we really have improved when we look at Brown, Army, and now Castleton. Tiffany has always been a great player. She's an MVP for us from last year. Isabel came out. She's very hard to take down. She runs hard with the ball. Tiffany is basically someone you don't want to mess with on the field. She's going to steal the ball. She's going to take you down. So those two have really come out this year and have showed their stuff. I think someone we need to really keep an eye on is Kaylee Hale. She has improved tremendously from last year. She's our conversion kicker. She's our fullback. She has changed her thought process and her perspective, and that has changed her whole level of play. She's confident, she's quick, she's moving better, and she's kicking the ball better. So I really think she's going to be someone we want to look out for.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys have gotten off to a great start. You got a good group of players there, and you guys have a matchup against Colby Sawyer College coming up, which is on Saturday, which is also for the heart-to-heart game. Could you just talk a little bit about the heart-to-heart movement here at Sacred Heart and what the fans should expect on game day? Sure.
Devin Kane, who founded it, a former ice hockey player, she's fantastic. And this whole movement that we have started here is, I think, amazing for our student athletes. There used to be the stigma that talking to someone means something's wrong. Well, we all have issues, we all have problems, and student athletes have a lot of pressures. And so to be able to ask for help and have a group that's willing to bring the awareness of mental health to the forefront and let it, as I say, shut down the stigma. It's been great for our student athletes, and I think that we should be seeing more of that. It's something that was hidden before, and now we can come up and say without any kind of guilt or shame, like, we all have something going on. So let's take this and make us healthier in our mental, status and stuff, and it helps us on the field. We're excited about hosting. Colby Sawyer is going to be wearing green. We're going to be wearing something that's green. We'll have a table out there for anyone that wants to come up and talk to some of the organizers and Tammy, who's a part of it for us. And we're all going to be promoting it through Instagram and what we fight for when it comes to mental health.
Yeah, and that sounds like such a great cause. It's always good to have those movements here on campus, the kids coming together, especially between different teams too. Obviously sports are sports. You play the game, you look to win, but there are bigger issues out there than what happens on the sports field. And it sounds like you guys are really starting a great movement there. And now, last but not least, as we look forward towards the end of this year, as we move forward in the season, what are your expectations for this team as you guys continue on in your schedule?
I really expect us to step up in our fundamentals. We've been really working on our tackling technique, and I think that it's time for us to be a defensive team. We're really good at our offensive side, and defense takes tenacity and a little bit of attitude, and we're trying to build that. And I think you're going to see a lot more aggressiveness when it comes to making tackles and getting into the rucks. I think that those are going to help us with the W's the next few games that we have.
Coach, that's all the time we have for today, but thank you for coming down, and we wish you guys the best of luck as the rest of the season goes on.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Thank you. Be sure to head down to Park Ave Field this Saturday when the rugby team takes on Colby Sawyer College with a 1 p.m. start time. After the break, Anthony will have more Sacred Heart sports action coming your way.
Welcome back, Pio fans. Even though the women's team match did get rained out this past weekend, the men's team got their two-day event in. Men's tennis traveled to Hofstra for the Hofstra Invite. The big story for Sacred Heart was the doubles team of first-year William Wilmer and sophomore Luca Castleduke. The duo doubles team completely swept the A doubles as they dominated their NEC foes in the bracket. The first match was against FDU, and Wilmer and Castleduke took the match 6-3. They then played Wagner in the next two matchups, taking the first game 6-3 and the finals game 6-4. In the consolation bracket of the A doubles group, the doubles team of junior CJ Hosokoa and junior Chris Sauce would place first after defeating Siena and Oneonta 6-1 and 6-3 respectively. In singles, Wilmer would make it to the finals of the A singles group after defeating FDU and Wagner, but fell to NEC foe Wagner in the finals. Men's tennis is back on the courts October 11th to start off a long week of its Northeast Regionals, hosted by Princeton. And certainly, last but not least, Sacred Heart football had a big game over the weekend as they traveled to Staten Island, New York. SHU faced off against Wagner in their first NEC matchup, looking to stay undefeated in the early season, and Sacred Heart did just that. The Pioneers were firing on all cylinders once again, as the offense and defense were not the only ones to make big plays. SHU would start the game off receiving the first kick, and boy did they make their first statement known. First year, Lucas Nunez would set up Sacred Heart on the Wagner 6-yard line after returning the first kickoff of the game 94 yards. Sacred Heart would capitalize on that monstrous return as graduate Kevin Duke would score on a 4-yard run, while in the second he would hit junior wideout R.J. Trimble Edwards for a 3-yard TD. Wagner would then cut the lead in half just minutes later with a score being 14-7. In the final minutes of the first half, SHU would score two more times off a 45-yard bomb from Kevin Duke to first-year wideout Nassim Brantley for his first career touchdown. On the next drive for Wagner, sophomore Salam Horn would come up with a huge interception to halt any Wagner momentum. That interception was capped off with a Jordan Meacham 1-yard rushing touchdown. Coming out of the half, Wagner would get the ball and would set themselves up for a 46-yard field goal. First year, Austin Bailey would prevent Wagner from putting any more points on the board as he would block the field goal attempt, giving SHU the ball back. Wagner would get back on the scoreboard one more time, making it 28-14 halfway through the third quarter. But it was all Sacred Heart from there, as Duke would make two 62-yard touchdown passes to seal the game. At the end of the third, Duke would connect with first-year wide receiver Troy Holland. And in the fourth quarter, Duke would connect with Brantley once again, sealing the victory 41-14. Duke would finish the game with 322 passing yards with 4 touchdowns through the air and 45 yards on the ground with 1 rushing touchdown for a total of 5 TDs on the day. Sacred Heart hits the road this weekend, traveling to Ithaca, New York, as they face off against Cornell. That game is set to kick off at 1:30 p.m. We'll end the show on that huge victory from Sacred Heart football. Make sure to tune in next week and get caught up on all of your Sacred Heart sports action, highlights, and more. From all of us here at the SHU Sports Report, I'm Anthony Saccone. Thank you for watching.